Hello and welcome to Small Group Leader Training for the Central Church of Christ. We're making a concerted effort to reinvigorate our small group program, and to do that we want to take an opportunity to give you some resources on how to be a small group leader. I think sometimes churches just say, hey, go do it, and we don't tell you how. That's our fault, so we're going to try to do better. And I think one tool for that will be this video. If you're interested in doing some reading, the model for small groups that we've adopted by and large comes from a book called Activate, written by Nelson Searcy and Carrick Thomas. We haven't adopted every detail in that book. We're not on board with every single sentence in a sense, because you have to tailor it to your own congregation, and those authors would be the first to tell you that. They're describing what worked in their church, and so we're taking their model and then adapting it to our church. But in their book, Activate, they have a small group paradigm that has 12 big ideas. And if you can buy into these 12 big ideas, you're really going to, I think, be a long way down the road to developing a good small group here with us at Central. Number one, think outside in, not inside out. When we think about small groups, we often think about fellowship among church members. And that's definitely one thing that a small group can be. But that's not the principal goal of our small groups at Central. We want you to have people in your small group that don't attend the Central Church of Christ. We think that would be wonderful. We want you to have meaningful connections with people outside of our church. So I think a lot of churches think of it as we have a big church that meets on Sunday morning, and then some of those people participate in a small group at some other time during the week, maybe Sunday night or a weeknight. We want to reverse that. We want to think about bringing people into our church through small groups. Sometimes it's hard to invite somebody to attend a Sunday morning worship service. It's unfamiliar to them. They don't know what to think about it. But they would be comfortable in your home, talking about the Bible, having dinner, meeting new people. In fact, they might be really excited about that. People are pretty lonely and isolated out there. So think of your small group not as a way just to contact Central members, although that's great, but think of people outside of our church that you could reach that might come to your home and join a group like this, and then someday might connect with our church at Central. The quote from the book is, "Small groups that focus on serving their own members rather than reaching out to others quickly become stagnant." The church isn't meant to be a group of people that only think about ourselves. We're a reaching out kind of people, and we've got to focus on that. Second, think larger, not smaller. Sometimes when people form small groups, they get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people together, and it can be kind of awkward. If you invite somebody new to it, they kind of feel out of place because there's just 3 or 4 people there, and maybe they don't know them, and they don't know how to get to know them. It's just difficult. And what the authors of this book have discovered is that groups with 7 members or fewer are difficult to lead and more likely to fail. Groups of 12 to 15 people do both the things we want groups to do, to be led and to succeed. They do both of those things more effectively. So what we're aiming for, the ideal small group, is 12 to 15 people. If it were up to me in a absolute sense, and I could just draw it out on a board and it would go this way, every group would be more than 8 and less than 20. Now, if you have less than 8, I'm not going to come break up your small group. And if you have more than 20, I'm not going to come break up your small group. But target the number of 12 to 15. That's kind of that golden mean, that perfect number of people that really make a small group work. When you hit 20, start thinking about, do we need another group? If you start sinking lower than 8, start asking yourself, should we be merging with a group that might also be struggling? Number 3, think friends, not intimacy. Small groups are a place where new friendships are formed. They aren't necessarily personal, intimate space. And I think sometimes we can overpromise that, and we can say to people that these small groups are where you're going to share your deepest, darkest feelings and secrets and emotions. It might turn into that. I'm not going to rule it out, but I'm not promising that. It's mostly a social space. It's a space for people who feel isolated to connect to other people. And that our hope is in that environment, we have an opportunity to share the gospel, to have meaningful discussions, and to encourage people in discipleship to Jesus Christ. So small groups are a place where new friendships are formed. It's not one-on-one counseling. It's not even a mentorship relationship. It's just a place where people can become friends. The auditorium where we have our worship is too big for that, and one-on-one is too small for that. This is a great size just to make some new connections with other people and families. Think short-term, not long-term. When you start a small group, you are not signing up for life. Now, if you want to do a small group like home teams at Central in the past, just were the same groups over several years, that's fine if you want to do that, but you're under no obligation to. The ideal length for a small group is 10 to 12 weeks. We're going to adjust that a little bit here at Central. We're going to make them a little longer. We're going to go on 2 semester sessions, which I'll explain in just a minute. But the point is that they have a beginning and an end. We're not saying, hey, sign up for my small group for the rest of your life. And we're not telling you as a leader, you have to host a small group for the rest of your life or until you burn out or until people stop coming. You sign up for 1 semester at a time. And if you want to renew it and do another semester, great. If you want to attend a small group and not host, also great. You're making a 1 semester commitment, and that's all. Think promotion months, not ongoing signups. So what we're going to do, instead of trying year-round to engage people and get connected to a small group, we're picking 2 times a year. As they say, a shorter, focused sign-up period increases small group participation and excitement. 2 months out of the year, we're going to emphasize small groups at Central. For us, we're picking July and December. In July, we're going to sign up for the fall small groups that will run August, September, October, November. We're telling everybody you should plan mid-November to wind your small group down. We don't want small groups to compete with families for holiday activities. If you want to have a small group Christmas party or a Thanksgiving, we're not going to stop you by any stretch. But in terms of regular meeting, try to wind that down mid to late November. And then the new small groups we'll start promoting again in December. People can sign up and get excited about it. And those will start in January. And the spring small groups will run January, February, March, April. Try to wind down your small group somewhere in April. And then when it gets to May and everyone's traveling, May, June, July, we're not going to try to have small groups meeting regularly. Again, if your group wants to meet, we're not going to come kick you out of your house. But the ideal buy-in time, the schedule we would really like you to try to manage is 2 semesters, August to November for the fall, January to April in the spring, with sign-ups in July and December. We want to think of our church as a church of small groups, not a church with small groups. And the difference there is that we don't want competing programs here. We don't want to just add small groups and say, we're doing one more thing now. Your life is already really, really busy, and church already has lots of programs. Now we're going to add one more. We want our church to function through small groups as one of the primary avenues that we use to get things done. We want fellowship to happen in small groups. We want service to happen in small groups. Small groups are going to be the tool by which we do just about everything. That's the goal. Small groups are exponentially more effective when they stand alone rather than having to compete with other church programs. And so think of your small group as the way you engage our church. There's 2 basic things our church will be doing on a week-to-week basis. We're going to have worship on Sunday morning. We're going to have small groups. Anything else is bonus, and I'm not saying there won't be other things. Of course, there'll be other opportunities to serve and do things, but those are the 2 primary points of engagement for anyone who wants to be involved at Central to connect with, and we don't want them to have to compete with other things that we do. We want to think easy, not hard. Sign-ups should be simple. 1-step sign-ups, which make getting into a small group faster, easier, and less intimidating, will greatly increase the number of people who join a group. We want to make this simple. We're going to make it as easy as possible. People still have to decide to join a group. We're not going to force them into anything. But in those 2 sign-up months every year, December and July, we're going to try to make it as simple as possible to make it available for people to sign up and know where these groups meet and how to get connected to a group they want to be in the coming term. To do that, we need to think ahead, not behind. For groups to be successful, you need to start planning and preparing 3 to 4 months in advance of their start date. Now, you may not see or participate in all 3 to 4 months of preparation. The staff and the elders have been working for a couple of months leading up to small group leader recruitment. So if members of small groups are recruited in December, leaders are getting prepared in the month of November. If members are signing up in July, we want leaders getting ready in June. But the staff and elders may be getting ready much earlier than that, preparing for the next round of small groups. So we need 3 or 4 months of prep that you might come in probably the last 2 or 3 months of preparation. But we can't do it at the last minute. There's no way to make that work. We need you to buy in, to make a plan, and to try to make this work for you. We want to think full staff participation, not staff specialist. Some churches will have somebody and say, that's the person in charge of all our small groups. It's possible we might still do that at some point, but right now, every person on staff needs to have a part in small groups, especially me, the lead minister. What we're going to do is everybody is interested in what we're doing with small groups. All of our elders are going to buy in. All of our staff are going to buy in. We're all on the same page. This isn't a pet program of one of our departments. Church-wide, everybody wants to be able to participate in a small group. We want to think apprentice and not expert. This is specifically for you who are watching, who are a small group leader. We want you to be prepared and preparing potential leaders to lead a life-changing small group on their own, regardless of how long they've been Christians or what their level of training and expertise is. Being a small group leader is not the same thing as being a teacher. You don't have to teach a class. Being a small group leader is sometimes about setting out some coffee and donuts and push and play on a video, or throwing a question out for people to discuss, or just saying, what are your prayer requests? You don't have to be an expert at anything to be a small group leader. If you need expertise, if you need material, if you need videos, if you need something to read, if you need something to do, we can help you do that. The staff provides that. Your job is to be eager and willing as an apprentice to learn how to lead a small group. And then in your group, once you start a group, the goal is for you to be able to look and say, who's going to be the next small group leader? We're not going to systematically break up these groups and say, okay, that group's too big, it's got to split off. We want you as a leader to say, that person is ready to start their own group. And they would do great inviting more people in if they were out on their own. And the way you do that is pretty straightforward. You ask somebody, would you help me with a small group? You're still going to be the leader, but you're asking them to help. In theory, every small group has a leader and a co-leader or apprentice who's going to be our next leader someday. The apprentice kind of goes through 4 phases with you. First, I do and you watch. You're the leader, you've got the experience, or you're going to get it somewhere, and they just watch what you do. And then maybe in another week, you say, I'm going to do it, but I want you to help. Here's the part I want you to do. And they learn along the way to do little pieces of it without having to do the whole thing. And then a little later on, you say, now you're going to do it, and I'm going to help. Let them lead one of the sessions, and you just pitch in and help where you can. And then by the time you're done, you do, and I applaud. I'm just here to cheer you on, and then this person is now ready to start their own small group. So the people developing small group leaders are small group leaders. That's where the training is going to happen, and the multiplication, not division, multiplication of small groups grows through that leader development process. We want to think decentralization, not control. Hey, I'm an organized kind of guy. My books on my shelf are arranged by color. I like things in a certain way, but I know not everybody's like me, and that's really good. Your small group is going to be different than the way I do a small group. If you tuned into this video thinking I was going to show you minute-to-minute guidance on how to do a small group, I'm not, because yours is going to be different. If you want some of that, I can point you to some videos that might help. We can maybe even walk you through it a few times. I'd be glad to come and help. But ultimately, as the book states, groups will multiply faster and be healthier when you trust God with your volunteer leaders and trust your volunteer leaders with your people. We trust you to start a small group and to do it right. It may be different the way you do it than somebody else. Every small group's going to be a little bit different. We're not going to control it all. We're not going to tell you what you have to do in your small group. We're not going to tell you what material you have to cover, where you have to meet, what time you have to meet. It really is up to you. There's as much freedom as possible. The only things we're asking you to buy in on is the big picture we've been discussing in this video, which is pretty straightforward, the schedule discussed in this video, and the intent of bringing people in and developing leaders through your group. You buy into that, and how you do it really is going to be left up to you. What material you want to cover, as long as it's not openly hostile to the convictions and doctrines of the church, we're not going to micromanage what kind of material you want to use. So number 12, think leader multiplication, not group multiplication. Through the semester-based system and the practice of apprenticing, we can multiply groups naturally by multiplying leaders. We're not going to come to the next semester and say, now let's add 5 groups. We're going to talk to you and say, do you have somebody that you've been working with who might be ready to start another small group? Do you have more people than you can deal with? And we need to find another leader. We're looking at multiplication by leaders, not just by people, warm bodies in a room. So you help us out by identifying that next leader and having them work with you to make your group successful. That is a really fast summary, but that's the basic idea of what we're trying to do in our small group. What's next? How do you buy in? First of all, buy into the small group schedule. This really only works if everybody's on the same schedule. It doesn't have to be a hard date where everybody starts on the same Tuesday in August. It's not like that. But in general terms, to make this work, you have to work on the semester schedule that is shown on this screen now. Let us promote small groups in July and December. Form your small group the month before so we know who the leaders are and where they're meeting. Let us advertise it in the promotion months, and then run these 4-month small groups through fall and spring, signing up one semester at a time. We need you to buy in the formation process. You have to decide, I want to host and lead. We want you to find a co-host or co-leader, which is someone who's going to help you when you're not available and is also our next leader. Always have somebody you're working with. Find a partner. Confirm a place and time. It could be your house. It could be a neutral location out in the community. We have lots of rooms available here at the Central Church Building and at the gym and other places, the Z-Tree. We'd love to make something available to you. You let us know what you need and we'll help you out. Pick a purpose and a description. What do you want your small group to do? And you say, well, to be a small group. No, what do you want to do? Do you want to really study the Bible together? Do you want to go serve in the community? Do you want to just meet socially and make new friends? Do you want to have projects or existing ministries here at Central you want to help? Do you want to check in on people who maybe haven't been here in a while? What do you want to do? What's the purpose of your small group? Jot that down, give us a description, and it allows us to find people with a similar passion to connect with your small group. And then you start recruiting members. Not everybody that wants to have a small group is going to fill their small group. I can't do anything about that. It's not a draft where we kind of shove people into boxes. The only way that we can make it work is for you to connect with some people and invite people. And failing is okay. Failure is acceptable. Not trying is unacceptable. You have to be the person who's recruiting people to attend in your small group. What are the minimum expectations for a small group? Meet regularly. Ideally weekly, no less than every other week. You really do have to have a schedule that's consistent, or else it's really not a group. Communicate with your members. You have to have a way, whether it's text messaging, calling, carrier pigeon or telegraph or smoke signals, I don't care. You have to communicate regularly with your members about what's going on, what are the plans, and what are the expectations. Every small group needs to pray together. I don't care if this is a social group, a Bible study group, a service group. I don't care if you're mowing yards or reading the Greek New Testament. Everybody is going to start somewhere in their group to have a prayer. Have a purpose. Be able to say, this is the reason we're getting together. And then finally, report to the office weekly. Why? So that we know how we can help you, and we know which members are engaged in a small group and which ones aren't, so we can encourage people to be more engaged. Fill tools, how do we get people into your groups? We're going to have one-step sign-ups. We're going to make this as easy as possible. We're going to have a little card. People put their name, pick a group. They know how to get connected. We may have some online forms as well, but we're going to try to make it as simple as possible, not a lot of details. We're going to try to put together some testimonial videos to show during the promotional months that say, here is why small group has been important to me. We're going to try to put together a small group catalog. Now, this depends on you. If you get your information to us early, then in December, we can tell the church, here are the groups that will meet in January. But if you don't form your small group until late December or January, then we can't list you in the catalog we put out in early December. So if you make the steps in this video and get us that information as soon as possible, we can put out a small group catalog that says, here's the small groups available, please join one. And then we have a small group table. Our table is actually not a table. It's a bulletin board in the lobby that has little informational cards on every small group and makes it available for people to find who might not have found it some other way. So we're going to try to help you the best we can to get people excited about small groups. You're still going to have to do some recruiting on your own. They're not just going to fill it automatically. So what are the leader essentials? This may be what you watch the video to see. We're only getting to it at the very end, but I think this is very important. What are the essentials? 5 essentials. You have to invite personally. Okay? I mean, one-on-one, talking to people you know, not just in our church. People you know, and say, I'd love to have you in my small group. You need to involve everyone. Don't let anyone be a mere spectator. Get them connected and involved in your group. Whatever your purpose is, help it connect with their life and help them connect with God's purpose for their life. You need to influence spiritual growth. Okay, I'm going to repeat this. I'm completely satisfied that most small groups are just a social space for friendships to develop. That's fine. But it can't be merely a social space. We want it to be a social space with a spiritual aspect. We want there to be opportunities through prayer, through service, through worship, through study, but definitely through prayer, to develop spiritual interest in the people that attend the small group. You're going to have to invest some time outside of group time. To be a successful leader, that hour or whatever amount of time you spend with your group can't be the only time you think about your group. You got to communicate with them through the week and do other things in preparation. And you got to inspire multiplication. You've got to look for the next small group leader. And that's how we're going to use these small groups to grow the kingdom of God here at the Central Church of Christ. If you have any questions, let me know. I know that was really fast, but hopefully it gives you some picture of what we're trying to accomplish here so we can all be on the same page. God bless.